We're back.
Back again.
It's been 7 minutes since our last episode of recording.
Maybe. Or it's been 7. It hasn't been 7 minutes, depending on when the episodes come out.
Yeah, I don't know what order I'm putting these. We recorded back to back. I guess we are recording back to back. This is the second recording of a back-to-back session.
That might air before the first recording?
I don't even
Just to fuck with them?
Maybe. It depends how good this episode is and which one's worse. I don't know. So words and things that I'm saying, and I'm saying them in an order that makes sense, and the people are
cheering. They're loving it.
They're loving it.
Best cold open ever.
Best opening of the cold freezer open words. Writing. How's your writing been going? You've been doing stuff?
Not as much as I should. I've been slacking both in my writing a little bit, and then also in my reading of Confederacy of Dunce. I'm still like around the halfway mark. It's one of those where like in actuality, in the time that I've had reading it, that's still pretty good, but it's not as I would hope to be farther than I am right now.
See, I've still been on this one extreme kick, so I have done no writing.
Okay.
I've written down a couple sentences for scene ideas I like. Okay. So that's something.
For like the crime.
Yeah, well, we didn't talk about that on air, but I've diverted all my attention from the projects I'm supposed to be finishing to a possible crime novel that I just been in the mood to write a crime. And also, I just want a fucking novel. And the one novel I've been working on is like, it's difficult.
Yeah. And it also seems like it's going to be a big one.
Yeah. So whereas a crime novel, I could just have fun, right? Because pulp stories for me are pretty easy to write. So I might just do something along those lines. Nothing's definitive. I don't even have like a character yet or anything, but I've come up with some scenes, but I've been diverting all my attention to reading.
Mm-hmm.
So, I read Ulysses, which took a couple months. And then I read The Orchard Keeper in, 4 or 5 days maybe. And then I read A Confederacy of Dunces in 5 days.
Yeah.
And now I'm reading Fight Club because I need my mind to shift over to more masculine, hard things such as, boners and,
which, I mean, there's a lot of that, in
Fight Club.
Yeah.
And hopefully reading Fight Club and then maybe going into some noir of some sorts. Because I'm also trying to time things. I'm going on vacation in a couple weeks and I don't want to take Moby Dick with me.
That's what I was wondering, like if you were going to try to take something to read there.
I usually take something that's a little easier to read. I told you I had that Raymond Chandler collection, but it's too big. I'm not taking that with me. So I might find another noir novel. I had some hard case books I was looking at, but they're a little crusty and I don't really want to read those. So I might go ahead and read Fight Club and then find one more noir book. And hopefully that shifts me enough that I can really get into this story I want to write. And then I'm going to see if I can get into hard case crime.
There you go.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would take me, but I feel like that'd be cool.
That or even like we were talking about before, like see if
Starlight Press.
Yeah,
Starlight Pulp.
Pulp. Yeah, that's what I couldn't remember it exactly.
See if they would publish somebody's actual novel. Yeah, that'd be cool too. Just be like, hey, I got a crime novel. I know you haven't published Outsiders as just individual work, but you can have 50% of the profits or whatever. We'll figure something out. So that might be a thing too. But I have to write the fucking thing first.
Yes.
Before that, I have to come up with the idea. So that's where I'm at now, and that's it. I loved Confederacy of Dunces for anyone who's wondering.
We'll be doing an episode on it shortly.
Ignatius Riley loves Batman. And he just keeps fucking a glove. Just so you know.
Okay. He's like fucking around with the hot dog guy. That's where I'm at now.
The fucking book is so funny at times. Like, I'm just the outrageousness of it. But we'll talk about that when we do the episode. Anyway, today we are talking about, serious episode, isn't it?
Kinda.
This is supposed to be this is a follow-up to an episode we did months ago about, I don't remember what I titled that episode, but it was the editor, I believe, of Story Magazine. Maybe the editor-in-chief did a Q&A of Story Magazine, and it was very informative about the submission process and how they go about. Well, there's a part 2 that I got an email for, I think, a week or so ago. So we're going to do that, and we're going to discuss some of those, and hopefully it's as good as the first. Usually, sequels suck compared to the first, but every once in a while, they're better.
Spider-Man 2 was really good.
Spider-Man 2 was really good. So keep that in mind as we go into this episode, and thank you for listening in advance. You are listening to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb James. With me, as always, Spencer, the Blarnox Boogeyman Basher Church.
Oh, yes?
I use Blarnox because that's where Mike's from, right?
Yes. Or
is it Blarnox? I don't know.
I don't know if that's where he's from, but I think that's where he resonates at the moment.
It's a real place, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, I've never seen it or heard of it, but it
sounds dumb as fuck. Blarnox. Sounds like somebody throwing up. But you know what? If that's the right name, good for Blarnox. Today we're discussing, as I said in the cold open, a follow-up to an episode we did where we were discussing, it was a Q&A we were reacting to, basically. Michael Nye, editor-in-chief of Story. So it kind of goes over their publishing practices at Story Magazine. And the first one was about submissions and how long you wait and how the thing actually functions. Because a lot of people, not even up-and-coming aspiring writers, but just cemented writers don't know the ins and out of the publishing world sometimes. You know, we go in, we submit, but we don't actually know how these publishing houses or magazines or reviews, how they work. So the first one I was very informative, and I think my success for some of my recent publications have been on the back of what I learned in that episode.
Right.
So hopefully we'll get more. Submission answers part 2. So again, we're going to go into, I'm not going to read it in the introduction, so let's just go to the questions, all right?
Yes.
All right. 4 questions that are sort of about the same thing. Okay. My questions concern tiered rejections. According to Rejection Wiki, Story utilizes tiered rejections. That's what the Missouri Review did, and I got up in their advanced tiers.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly from the first episode we did on this, it was like intern. Somebody just reads it. If they like it and think it's worthwhile, they pass it up. And it just goes past it up until it gets to the actual editor, who most of the time says no.
Yeah.
But I don't think I got to the editor. I think I probably got to the tier before that, I'd imagine. Because I didn't get a personalized rejection from the editor, but I did get a personalized rejection. I got special consideration. Assuming that's the case, roughly what percentage of declined submissions receive a higher rejection? As corollary, I don't know how to say that word, corollary to that, are the higher tier decisions at the discretion of the first reader, or does it imply that the story was passed on to subsequent readers? What do the different, so these are all questions he's going to answer, all 4 of these, I would imagine. So there's 4 questions here total. All mean the same thing, I guess. We're dealing with the same thing. What do the different kinds of rejection letters mean? In other words, how can we tell when it's more than a form rejection that says your story is not a good fit, but they like your writing? For example, when a rejection asks you to send us more work, do they really mean it? I always wonder that because I get that a lot. And I always wonder, is it because I pay money?
Right. Yeah.
Or do you actually want more of my work? Because if it means they want more of your work, that means they liked your writing. It's just maybe the story. Because sometimes the story just isn't a fit. Sometimes there's themes, but then when there's not, you never know what they're
looking for. Or
they still have a theme in mind maybe for the issue that's coming out, but you don't know that because they didn't do an open theme call. It's just open submission. So they're just looking for, hey, we want summary, fun theme, but you submitted a ghost story.
Right.
No matter how literary, that might not fit. How far does a story have to get through your selection process to receive this reply, and about what percentage of submissions get this far? And finally, what percentage of rejections would you classify as higher tier rejections? Like most writers, I'm eager for any insight into how my work might be perceived. So here's the answer. What I'm hearing is that a lot of writers receive rejection letters from Story and other literary magazines and think, but what does this actually mean? I know I do. In the simplest terms, all rejections mean the same thing. We will not be publishing your story. Yeah. Sucks a dick. Brass tacks, that's all. Oh, man. Brass tacks, that's all it means, and I'm not sure it is useful to your creative work to think that much more about it. That said, I am an overthinker, and so a literary magazine gets 99% of its content from writers, so we, Lit Mags collectively, try to say more than just no by providing a little more information to the writer. After all, we want to be supportive, encouraging, and helpful. But the sheer volume of submissions makes that impossible. One way we attempt to bridge that gigantic gap is by using tiered rejections. Most of you are familiar with getting different types of rejections from literary magazines. I know I am, with slightly different wording from one story to the next. Story uses 4 tiers of rejections. The first 3 are, for the most part, form rejections with space for the reader editor to provide commentary. The 4th one is a personal rejection, which I write myself. I actually didn't know what our percentages were until we asked, so I had to look this up. Tier 1. This is the generic response. 59%. This is our most basic response. So
That's still not, that's lower than what I thought it was going to be.
you still get 40% of wiggle room.
Yeah.
Tier 2, 29%. Tier 3, 3%. So if I made it to tier 3.
That's a big jump.
Yeah, so if I made it to tier 3, I was pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
Tier 4 is 11%. This is a blank rejection that must be typed up. So maybe I sucked ass because if it's only 3% of tier 3, most of those get bumped up to the final tier. So a note about tier 3. Oh no. It is specifically created to allow a staff member to write and add a paragraph, and I actively discourage it.
Oh, wow.
Writing good, useful criticism is hard, and I know I have stepped in it more than once with a writer who I know solely through submissions, and I prefer my staff doesn't put pressure on themselves in that regard. So he doesn't want his staff to do the written, which I think mine was a staff rejection from Missouri Review. So I was in the tier 3, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen my name on a rejection, yes, it really did come from me. And yes, I really meant what I said when I said I'd like to see more. Story contributors have certainly received rejections of their work at all tier levels. That's perfectly normal. Seeing a basic thanks but no thanks really just means this particular story didn't work for us. That's all. We realize it is far too impersonal, but we do our best in a small way, give you some sense of where your story landed with us. Before I continue, I'm going to see if I can find that rejection from Missouri Review, because in the first episode I described this guy used to be the editor-in-chief, I believe, at Missouri Review, and that's why Story uses the same system.
Right. Well, and you think that's probably a good system. That's probably some form of that system
in most places. I would think.
Maybe more or less tiers, but the same basic concept.
Yeah, so mine was just the editor, so I'm assuming I was in Story. Well, I don't know. I was either in the 3rd tier or, it's the editors, so it's not just he said he puts his name, but maybe they don't have just one editor at Missouri like that covers the final product. I don't know.
Well, maybe they don't want to have, even in those higher tiers, they don't want to name the editor.
That's possible.
For whatever reason,
But regardless, it was a personal one, so I at least got in the 3rd tier, which I guess, for my standing is good. At least enough people read my work.
Right, yeah.
That they thought it was worth pushing up. And remember, like I said, for the story I was submitting is basically genre. So at a literary mag, especially one as prestigious as the Missouri Review, to even get that attention, I feel like the writing has to be really solid. So that I'm still happy with that. I did just get rejected. That story got rejected by a New England Review, which they have a less than 1% acceptance rating. Wow. And they pay really good too, but they're one of the top. It's probably up there, maybe below the Paris Review and New Yorker, but they're up there. I believe that one was generic. So I did not get anywhere with that one. But again, a genre story getting in there would be pretty impressive. So I still have hope. I got 2 other places waiting on. I hope one of them picks it. If not, then I have to go another round of submissions, which I'm not looking forward to because that usually means I drop down a tier.
Yeah.
And try to find some other review. The length is what gets me too, because it's around 8,000 words.
Right.
The American short fiction, which I would have loved. They actually have their Halifax prize, I think, right now. I would have loved to submit to that, but I think their cutoff is 6,500 words. So I'm over the limit. And because I feel like my story would have been a better fit for them because they seem to be more kind to genre-y, literary genre stuff. Next up on this questionnaire.
And that's over. It's just those 4 questions.
That was it, No, I forget where we ended. Okay. I understand response times are really long and why. My question is why they are variable, i.e. why does one writer get a form rejection after 68 days and another get a form rejection after 185 days? Is the latter making it to some other round of internal reading, or does it just depend on the time of year? I feel like this was in the last one. As a writer, long response times drive me crazy. Literary magazines shouldn't take so freaking long to get back to us. I'm aware, by the way, that story is not perfect in this regard, but I don't like it either. If you're getting thousands of stories, longer stories, and you only have 5 to 10 people who are reading them, I understand.
Right,
I remember trying to keep up with DPW stories, and we were only getting them in the hundreds.
Yeah.
For story, my best guess is that in this particular case, one of the submissions was for our story foundation. I did read this before, I think. Did I click on the wrong one? No. Let me see and make sure. Does this sound familiar to you? Maybe I just read the article to myself.
Maybe.
I'll read it just in case. Regardless, though, it's basically saying that it's just response times are bad regardless. They don't want them to be, but they are. For this one, it's depending what you submitted to, what the open call was. But normally, if they have a time frame, they stick with it. If you go over the time frame, sometimes that means you're actually in like serious consideration. But there's ones like I've been in progress or in review at a couple places for 5 years now, and I think they just forgot me.
You right, yeah.
Like on Submittable will show you. So, yeah. What is the magazine's thinking about the benefit and drawbacks of blind submissions? I personally preferred blind submissions because you don't feel like you're picking someone based on any other metric beyond the story.
Yeah.
I don't need to know that you are a African lesbian Muslim. I don't need to know that you are a straight white Christian fundamentalist. I don't need to know anything. I need to know, is the story good? I don't want to read a story from someone that's like a raging MAGA person or fucking Antifa or whatever it is beforehand, because that might make me more biased and not want to accept the story based on, some preconceived notions I have about whatever this person may or may not believe in or who they are. Blind submissions, personally, is what I would always go for if I was a literary magazine. So anyway, great question and a tricky one. I expect to get nuked by someone in this response, but here it goes. Broadly, I think the idea behind blind submissions is that you are judging the work solely based on the work and not on anything about the author. I also find this gets rid of the nepotism and I know somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Like in the cover letter, I remember we had Miette from Whiskey Tit on. She said that, if you mentioned that this person that I know, I'll take your letter more seriously. I'm like, I'm thinking, that's cool. But then in my head, I was like, that's kind of fucked up.
Right.
Like, because that just means, if you know this person, you get special consideration immediately, So, let's see. Solely based on the work and not anything about the author, their race, creed, gender, identity, where they went to college, former contributor, unpublished, or National Book Award winner, and so forth. But I'd argue that all these factors do matter and should be considered. Controversy. Hypothetically, let's say all of our submissions are blind. We accept 12 stories, we are ready to publish them, and we discover all 12 are by white American males. Do we have a problem? I say absolutely. Who gets angry about this example? Old white guys. That's it. No one else. So then what's the problem? If you publish 12 white guys.
Well, I think what he's saying is when that example that he uses, that the only people that get mad at that are the white guys.
Oh, so that's the only ones that get mad if, let's say you published all, just random,
Well, what I'm saying,
non-white guys.
Well, because I think what he's trying to say, if you do all just white guys, then there's obviously no diversity or anything in it.
Got you.
And then using that as an example, the white guys get mad at that.
As a writer who was university trained, BA and MFA and whatnot, in the 90s, my writing education focused on Raymond Carver, John Updike, Richard Yates, a bunch of whiteys. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying Richard Russo novels. It is human to drift toward what is familiar, and sure, I was taught stories and novels by Joyce Carol Oates and Ann Beadle and Jane Smiley, but it's a bit of a narrow worldview, isn't it? Let's try to take the and you know what? There is another side of this argument we've discussed on here about the no white, but no white males we see in submissions now. Basically, some actually explicitly state that.
Yeah.
And some are more covert. If you're a straight white male, you have to pay a fee. And if you're LBGT or BIPOC is the one they use normally. Right. If you're a BIPOC writer, you don't have to pay the fee. So it's you're punishing just do blind. That's what I would say, but apparently they don't want that either. So let's try to take the temperature down a bit here. Let's say we have accepted 12 stories, and they are all stories about depressing marriages set in New England. All 12 stories are good. They're great. But do you want to read 12 of those in a row because they sort of feel all the same? That's fair, too.
Yeah.
If you only, if you do blind testing and it's all different readers, and then you come out with 12 white guy stories that are all 12 white guy stories, you got a problem even if they're really good. Our goal of story is to showcase a spectrum of contemporary fiction within our print edition. As an editor, I aim to stretch my wings. Those wings will always remain attached to the body, to my brain, and to my heart. By the way, what I do is I submit stories that I think are incredibly unique. That's what I want to write. So you're not going to catch a Caleb James K submission that's going to be about failed marriages and boring literary things that have been talked about. I'm going to submit an Appalachian Gothic story.
Or a gay werewolf story.
Or a gay werewolf story. I'm going to submit something that I think is going to stand out regardless of who I am as a person or whatever my identity is. So I think that is, as a writer, should be most people's aims. I mean, some people still want to write, oh, I love Ernest Hemingway, so I'm just going to write that kind of stuff. And you can, but I don't think people are going to want to publish that as much.
You have to be really good at it.
Yeah. So yeah, basically this guy's saying that, you don't want writers from the same ilk all the time. You want a diversity, which is fair. So we want each we want each issue of story to showcase a range, not just of authors, blah, blah, blah. Also, one of the things we do as a magazine, and I thought this was interesting because I did read this before, is publish an Ohio author in every issue.
Oh.
Must be based out of Ohio. In order to do that, we need to verify where the work is coming from. Statistically, this gives Ohio authors an advantage, but hey, it is one story out of the 10 or 12 we publish. It is our mission statement. It is in our mission statement, and we are committed to championing authors from our state. This is not a complete discussion of all the ins and outs and questions of blind submissions. So that's it. But that one I thought was interesting because, say we were a Pittsburgh-oriented publication, we want one Pittsburgh story in every publication.
Yeah.
Every magazine we put out for DPW, Free Press, or whatever it is. Fine. But here's the problem. Say we did blind.
Yeah.
And we published 10 stories, and then we find out they're all Pittsburgh-based.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Or if we want one Pittsburgh story, and then that means now every other story can't be someone from Pittsburgh. So now we're almost discriminating because we only wanted one Pittsburgh story.
Right.
Versus if we're just like, hey, let's pick the best stories out of the bunch, and then 3 of them are Pittsburgh, fine. If none of them are Pittsburgh, fine. Where would you go on that? Like, that's an odd one.
I mean, I kind of like the idea, but then say like the last story, it's up between 2 guys.
One's Pittsburgh, one's not.
Yeah,
and the one that's not Pittsburgh is better.
Right? Yeah,
but we need a Pittsburgh guy.
Right? Yeah, and then also too, I feel like depending on where you're from, like Pittsburgh, like I feel like you would tap that well out pretty quick.
Yeah. Maybe
not Ohio; it's a little bit bigger.
Well, that's the thing. He said Ohio is a state. Well, I mean, we use Pittsburgh. It was Pennsylvania.
Well, yeah,
that's a different.
True. Yeah.
And Pennsylvania is big enough. You have a diversity.
Right. Yeah.
Philadelphia is in Pittsburgh.
So I had a Charlie moment.
Yeah.
Whenever just
Philadelphia.
Pittsburgh's just all of Pennsylvania.
So I thought that was interesting that, a deeper dive into it, but it's still that makes me feel like I have less chance.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I never submitted a story.
Yeah,
I don't know why I get those emails. I never read story. I have nothing to do with story. I just know it's a bigger publication.
Huh.
I maybe once looked on their submissions
right,
just to see what they would take and stuff. Why I get those emails, I don't know, but I like them. So I don't know. That makes me feel more pessimistic about submitting to literary magazines because I already felt like I never really had a fair shot anyway, just because of the stuff I write. But now that I think my prose has gotten a lot better and I'm getting more personal responses from these bigger literary magazines, I'm like, I'm on the right track. I know the writing's there now. It's just a matter of the stories they take. And then it's like, well, fuck. If my identity has already excluded me from some magazines, just being a straight married white male from Southwest Pennsylvania, that's not exciting.
Right.
I'm not a Nicholas Obregon. I'm not a Spanish speaking British accent having fucking guy who's lived around the world cosmopolite.
Yeah.
Like I'm not that cool.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm fucking white bread. So that already excludes me from modern magazines to a degree. If this was 1930s, I'd be fucking going gangbusters.
Right, yeah, you'd.
Then again, that's one thing they never. Here's a digression. That's one thing they never talk about when they bring up. Oh, we used to have all these just stories from white guys, and it's not fair and stuff. But if you were a white guy in the 1930s to the 1980s, you're competing with all white guys for the most part. So the market on those stories and stuff is actually saturated. So I think it would be harder. I mean, not necessarily harder, but like to stand out would be more difficult, I would think. I don't know. I would like to do some research on that. But if you came out as like a Langston Hughes or something, you might be like, oh, a black, possibly gay guy.
Yeah.
That stands out a little more. But anyway.
But I think during that time period,
you don't want to stand out.
Yeah, you don't want to stand out. People wouldn't buy your stuff just for the fact that you were a black or maybe gay guy.
True. So I don't know, but I that makes me a little discouraged just knowing that if I submit to a magazine and if it's not a blind reading, I could be not prejudiced against, but there is some certain element where it's like, if I end my story and let's say a member of the BIPOC stuff, so black, indigenous, gay, whatever it is, someone else who has more boxes ticked than I would for being a quote unquote interesting author or interesting person, more culturally diverse person. If it's my story versus their story and they're around the same equality of goodness, they're probably not going to go with my story because they're like, oh, well, I mean, we get this one and we get a little, the merit-based brownie point. So that kind of sucks that, you have to compete against that. So I like the blind readings better.
You need to start maybe working in like how you were like maybe just like an orphan or something. You need to,
That's what Ashley was doing.
You need to, spice up the backstory a little bit.
Yeah. Lie.
Yeah.
that never backfired on
you
anyone.
You don't think people are lying to get into some of those like the BT or BIPOC
But that's when you get into that victim shit that we've seen the last like 10 years where you go on Twitter and someone in their bio is like, oh, victim of SA and neurodivergent, and it's like, why do you have to have so many things?
Yeah,
it's like we all have fucking problems. I just I'm gay, transgendered, militant, coffee advocate, or like just like weird, too much. Like you could be these things, but why do you want I always wanted my identity to be writer. Like if I wanted to identify as something, I just wanted to be a good writer. So I wanted someone to read my stories and be like, oh, that guy's a good writer. I don't care to be like, I don't want to be the gay writer or the straight writer. I don't want to be the right wing writer or the left wing writer. I don't want to be I don't even want to be considered a genre writer. I just want to be a writer. So I'm always weirded out when people want to have like all these identifiers before being a writer. And it's like, oh, well, there's a lot of splatterpunk writers, but how many trans accidentalist, McCarthyist transgendered writers, splatterpunk writers? Like, I don't know.
More than you would think.
I don't know what any of that means anymore. So I don't want to be all that shit.
Are you just afraid of becoming like an old man yelling at the clouds?
I'm already there. I yell at clouds all the time because they're too goddamn white. I don't like when my clouds start getting a little gray, or especially when they get real dark.
Ooh, I don't like it. And they rumble. They want to talk.
Ooh, of course, the dark clouds.
You want to talk back.
Of course, the dark clouds make a lot of noise. They gotta be real loud.
Mess up damaged property.
They damage the property every time I'm trying to watch a movie. Them goddamn dark clouds are yelling at the top of their lungs.
Want to knock my power out.
Knock my power out. They break my shutters.
They make my doggy scream.
We figured out how to be racist against clouds. That's a feat. So, anyway, going back to submissions, I don't think that I have the greatest shot at getting into magazines, even if the quality of my work is up there, just because, one, the identifiers, but two, just the stuff I'm writing, I don't think is always a fit, because that goes with the prejudice against genre fiction in literary magazines. I don't like writing those boring literary stories.
Yeah.
I can. I just don't think they're fun. Like, I don't, again, like, the stories about divorce and shit. It's like, why do people want to read that?
Right.
I feel like it's only academic snobs that read those. And it's like, why can't you have one story that's different? That's a conversation for another day, but I'm just not a big fan of boring shit. Are you ever going to submit to any of these literary magazines?
No, because like I'm more genre than you are, and I feel more comfortable. Like I wouldn't mind just being, as long as I can like jump around the genres, like as long as it's
fine with that.
Yeah, like have it be horror or sci-fi or action adventure, whatever kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think I would like to, every once in a while, just to see if it's something I can, I can do. But I would probably still have more like it'd probably just actually be more of like kind of like what you're currently doing of maybe more literary style writing, but still have some some genre aspects in it.
Well, at this point, I would be fine just being considered a more pulp writer.
Yeah.
Whether it's like crime. I mean, I don't want to be cemented in just he's a crime writer now, or he's I got a tag as a horror writer. Just because I keep getting published in horror shit, but it's like I don't want to be a horror writer. I don't even necessarily like writing horror that much. I just like the story ideas. That's the main thing for me is I just like the story ideas and
you like the murdering.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it is. And the ways you could do the murdering, and I like describing the murdering. But as far as just actually trying to scare people, I don't give a fuck.
No.
Anyway, I think that the best thing we could do is just keep writing what we're writing and hope there's an audience. The problem is once you get to a certain degree of popularity, it doesn't matter what you write anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which just proves that this whole genre shit or you got to do this kind of writing is horse shit.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a good writer, people are going to read your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's generally what it is.
And like we've talked about before, you can't try to start writing stuff because you're trying to catch like a wave of something. You just write the stories that you want to write, and then
if you catch a wave, good, but not whatever.
If they're good, they'll they make their own wave.
Yeah. Now, I'm not a big fan of the and this is a bit more controversial, but the whole indie movement where it's just like, oh, we only publish our own stuff, and it's like, that's fine. You make a lot of money if you get really good and you build an audience and stuff. My only problem with that being like an indie author, which I've come across in just some of the books we've read, is that there's no quality test control. There's no quality control for the work. So, I mean, yeah, they can send it off to editors and stuff that they pay, but that does, okay, no typos. The grammar's fine. Maybe the plot holes are cleared up. But there's no test to actually say that the story is anything exceptional, And again, that's fine if, you just want to put out your own work and you don't mind. But I never was really a big fan of the idea of just, it goes back to the DPW days. It's cool now that I've been submitting some of the stories that I've written that was on DPW and they're getting published by stuff. I'm getting paid for them. I'm like, oh, I guess they were good. But when we were publishing them, I had no idea if they were actually quality.
Right.
Like we'd have readers comment, like, oh, I like the story. But, readers are more forgiving. But there was no quality control to say, oh, this story you wrote's actually good or it's just like average or, it could be well written, but it doesn't mean it's a good story. You know? So I like the idea of having, it doesn't mean you have to get traditionally published and stuff, but I like the idea of the market dictating your work, but also like some quality control where it's like, hey, a top editor actually thinks this is a good, worthwhile, or a publisher thinks this would make money and it's worthwhile. And now we know like Twilight and shit, like that doesn't mean
right. Yeah,
a publisher doesn't mean that you're a good writer just because they're putting out your work, but they do see dollar signs in you. But I don't like just the, I'm just going to pump out a bunch of work myself and hopefully build an audience that way. But then it turns out my biggest fear would be a new reader who doesn't know me, sees that I have a book that's real popular that I published myself. And they're like, oh, they don't know that most of those stars are other writers I know. Right, or, I did one of those review tours where it's like, hey, I pay money and they review my book somewhat favorably. And then a new writer comes, this is garbage. And then you get I don't know why this is so popular. That's the worst comment to me. Is I don't know why this is so popular. It fucking sucks. There's a bit of quality control I think is important that you can only get by getting into like literary magazines and stuff. Like having somebody actually judge the work. But also, you have to realize that sometimes those people who are judging the work are stupid. Or they're just not good quality, What's the quality of the judge then?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know their opinion actually matters too? Because it's all subject to taste, but anyway, I think that covers most of it. Unless you wanted to ramble about something else.
Filibuster about something else.
Filibuster, you just like that word.
I do like filibuster. Well, it's been going on a lot recently.
Yeah, a lot of filibustering. So you could check out Spencer's OnlyFans. What were you? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I can't even think of what it began with.
It was the Blarnox.
Yeah.
The Blarnox Boogeyman Basher.
Right, yeah.
Is there a Boogeyman of Blarnox? Is his name Mike? Is he going around?
No, I'm bashing Boogeymans.
You're bashing the Boogeyman?
Isn't that's what it sounds like?
Blarnox Boogeyman Basher.
Yeah, so that's if you're insinuating that Mike is the Boogeyman.
You're bashing Mike?
Well, I don't know.
Is he going around scaring children?
If he's the Boogeyman of Blarnox, he's getting smashed. Or bashed, or whatever it is.
The Baba Yaga.
Yeah.
Blarnox. That's better. The Blarnox Baba Yaga. Fucking done with it. It was stupid to start with, and it's stupid to end with. You can follow me at CalebJamesK.com, where my updated publishing history is currently being updated. Growing. Yeah, that's good. You could check out whatever we do at DPW Podcast on Twitter, X, Facebook, YouTube, not Blue Sky. I think it's it.
Yeah.
Twitter and X I put separate for some reason. So yeah, do that, and we will check you out next week and probably be back to normal. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we'll never be back to normal.
What is normal?
Ponder that as we go and smoke crack.